A Morning to Forget. Ezekiel Kralin continues his story about the two dogs, Flacco and Lucky, and his friend, or frenemy, as the case may be, Deke, who has found a place to live, or been given a place to live in a tiny house, or so it's assumed by Ezekiel at this point in the story. Email correspondence, January 29th. Ezekiel Kralin wrote, under the subject, I came that close to calling the cops again. Continued, come down here, Zeke. I need your help. I'm sick. The dogs are sick. I need to go to the hospital. Resigned to a miserable start of my day, I stepped outside where he was slumped against the ATM plywood, and the dogs, leashed to the baby buggy, greeted me with their usual delight. Lucky flopped on his back and began writhing for belly scritches as I crouched down beside him, and his sister stood up with front paws on my thigh to receive caresses. But their master would have none of that, for he was in a nasty mood, or better said, another drama played out by my bodhisattva guardian to strengthen my mettle. I'm really sick, I mean it. He groveled there on the sidewalk like a leper in his death throes. Lucky's been throwing up blood all night long. Flacco's kind of sick, too. They need to see a vet. The dogs look fine to me, I said, and so do you. I crouched back down to pet and scritch them again. They were amazingly placid and glowed with health, wet, cold noses and all. You do know, don't you, I added, you can take your dogs to the SPCA in an emergency, even if one of them isn't spayed or registered. That's where you should go, because I'm not a vet. I'm not your superhero. My hands are tied. You can imagine, Watson, he wasn't pleased with my replies, to put it gently, and he exploded into a tirade of vicious accusations, said he already tried the SPCA, but they were closed. Yeah, sure he did. He threw out bloody puke on my way here, Deke exclaimed. Just a few blocks away. Let's go there. See for yourself. I'm not making this up. He made as if to stand, but I shook my head. Nope, not going to do that. After all, Watson, it could be any dog's upchuck that he came across while plotting his latest drama on the way to my building. At one point, I interjected, if he's really sick, they'll take care of him at the shelter, but of course, he said, they won't, they'll just let him die. I need to escort him to SF General so I can watch the dogs outside. Not going to happen, Deke. You're not sick, and the dogs are in good health. This is just another one of your bullshit dramas. Besides, hospitals are overburdened. Our health care is collapsing. They'll probably keep you overnight and into the next day before they even get to you. I then took a deep breath before asking, now, can I bring them some water? He said, okay. How about I fix them a meal, too? They might be hungry, I suggested, but he turned that down. When I returned with a bowl in my hands, the dogs seemed eager to partake, but as soon as I set it down and removed the lid, they just sniffed at it and stepped back, looking up at me as if to say, we were hoping for a bite to eat, Uncle Zeke. But their master stood in the way of my nourishing them. I could only trust he'd feed them sometime soon, once out of my view, seeing as I gave him 2 large Ziploc bags of kibble and 8 cans of dog food Wednesday evening. Besides, he has places to go for free doggy victuals. Deke continued to push for me to accompany him to the hospital, or at least watch the dogs while he goes there himself. He even gushed crocodile tears, proclaiming he's really sick and has to see a doctor, but I remained firm while caressing my darling Brindlekin. When he saw I wasn't about to budge, he stood up and declared he's going to leave the dogs here and go to the hospital. So I warned him, if you do that, Deke, I'll have to call animal rescue. You give me no choice. You do that and your name will be mud around here, he retorted while fussing with the contents of the buggy. Then he turned away, started marching up Market Street toward Castro, while the pups calmly remained in their spot beside my feet. I observed him cross the intersection and disappear around the Chevron station, while seated with the pups, who also watched their master from afar. They showed no urgency to catch up with him, but stayed by my side without any obvious concern. I guess they're used to that, and since he always returns soon or hands them off to me for a time, they felt no reason to worry. What remarkable angels they are. At this point, I figured I should run upstairs and prepare them a meal, so I summoned them over to the buggy and tethered their leashes to the signpost right beside. I'll be back in 2 minutes, I said, then returned Huffle. While upstairs and about to open the bag of kibble, I entertained the idea of sneaking them inside one by one in my arms so that it remained silent, with the second Poochie tethered to a pole while I carry the first one upstairs, that is, if their master were serious about getting medical help and didn't return within the hour. I'd take Flacco first, because she's more likely to bark in outrage for being left alone while watching her brother's delivery into my sanctuary. She'd probably yank herself free of her collar anyway and stand by the front gate, barking up a blizzard. But then I sighed and vanquished the notion as I realized if I take them into my room just once, Deke would keep pushing that I do it again and again and again, one hissy fit after another, the perfect excuse to spew hatred at me every single time he drops by. Or realizing now that I would cave in and bring them indoors if he just walks away without the hounds, he'd make up further excuses to leave them with me, excuses that I couldn't refuse, most likely feigning he's still sick and needs to go to the clinic again and again and again. I wind up being evicted for real shortly thereafter, so I went ahead and opened the bag of kibble, but paused to look out the window. There they were, sitting as calm as could be, waiting in good faith their uncle's or master's return. I then turned away to procure 2 disposable bowls from my pantry, and as soon as I deposited the first handful of kibble, I heard Deke grouching outside, saying "damn it" and other expressions I did not bother to discern. He probably assumed I just left the canines tethered outside and abandoned them because he seems to think the worst of me these days. But he doesn't need to know that I would never call animal control, no matter what. I'd find a way to care for them outside, by hook or by crook, and eventually find a loving home for them should their master disappear for good. I guess I'd have to sleep on the streets with the pups till that happens, and stay with them outdoors most of the time every day. It's not sunny now as I write this. It hasn't been for almost an hour. But it was while Deke and dogs were here, including his return after his fake departure to SF General. So when I stepped back outside, I suggested he just kick back with the dogs and enjoy the warm rays of the sun, and I can bring them a meal. No, don't bring me anything. I'm going to sit here all afternoon and play my music at full volume, he replied, while already seated against the plywood with the dogs by his side. It's not against the law to blast music as loud as I want until 10 p.m. Fine with me, Deke, I answered, realizing that his present speaker was on the small side and wouldn't be much of a nuisance at all. But if you start screaming again, I will call the police and have you move along. Not knowing what else to say, but with absolutely no desire to fill my ears with any further vitriolic rants, I pet the dogs once more and returned to Hoffel. But once upstairs, I decided to provide the mutts with a sheet of cardboard and a sleeping bag to rest upon. Though Deke would probably oppose me, I had to try. Soon as I opened the front gate and he saw me carrying those items under one arm, he exclaimed, "Oh, no, I didn't ask you for that." "Come on, Deke," I appealed to his angelic side. "The dogs deserve some comfort. You're going to be up for a while. You're going to be here for a while." Upon my attempt to lay down the cardboard, he kicked it away where it skid towards the curb. The doggies were eager for the bedding, but nonetheless remained patiently stoic toward their master's outburst and remained seated. I retrieved the huge sheet of cardboard and tried setting it down again, upon which Deke swung a hand forward to block it, the same hand that gripped his smartphone, but upon that powerful gesture it flew with a crash onto the concrete. "You made me break my phone," he hollered, then stood up muttering atrocities at me as he began to push the buggy down the sidewalk, dogs in tow. One atrocity being, "You're gay. All gay people are mentally ill fuck-ups. You're sick. Stay away from me." Rather than engage him with yet another pointless argument settled by professionals decades ago, I decided to watch them depart. Besides which, if I immediately picked up the cardboard and sleeping bag, it might cause him to return to the spot below my window. He stopped at the corner and plunked himself down, whereupon I took the items back upstairs. I first thought to follow him and attempt to set the bedding down by his new location, which may inspire him to move farther up the street, but concluded that this wasn't the best tactic at this point in our latest skirmish. Thanks to Deke's early morning disruption, I had yet to brush my teeth and shave, so finally got around to it now that he's moved to the corner and quieted down. Starting the day can sure be an uphill struggle when he's around, but no sooner had I sat down and resumed listening to Marshall's podcast, I heard Deke's boisterous calls from down the blog. "Yo! Yo! Oh, Zeke Kralin! Yo!" So I put on my sneakers, jacket, and cap once again and stepped out to see him smashing his phone 2 or 3 times upon the concrete. Jeez, I thought, what fresh hell is this? "Do you have another music chip on a stick?" he requested in a frustrated tone. By stick, he meant a flash drive that his speaker could use, or maybe it had a slot for a micro SD card, or both, seeing as, even though his smartphone uses a chip, it was unlikely it would function ever again. "Let me see," I said while petting the pups. "I'll be right back." I returned with both in less than 2 minutes and handed them to him. "I hope these work for you," I said. "They both include your complete collection." I then quickly departed to return hovel, grateful he had calmed down so I could finally move on with my day, starting with a cup of Rosenberg's Java, which I was planning to purchase over an hour before, but barely had a few minutes passed when I heard him yell, "Yo, yo, yo," once again, so again I stepped out to see what's wrong. This time, "Does this even have music on it? It won't play," he asked while holding the chip out to me. I took it and said, "Okay, I'll check if it does. Be back in a minute." Turns out it did, but I decided to bring him a different chip after first inserting it into my laptop, make sure it contained all his songs. It did, so I brought it to him. "The chip I gave you does have all your music on it. Maybe your speaker for some reason didn't recognize it, so here's another chip to try. I hope it works, though I can't promise, since it's the same brand." Before departing, which I attempted to do immediately, he declared, "If I were straight and these dogs weren't with me, I'd beat you into the ground." "Whatever," I replied as I walked away while he spewed additional threats that I ignored, except with few shrugs of my shoulders and outstretched arms in a so-be-it gesture without turning to face him. As soon as I turned the key in the gate and entered, I no longer heard his voice, thank Glob, though I did hear him call out one particularly hurtful accusation. "That's what you want, isn't it? You really don't want to see me or the dogs again." He really knows how to press my buttons, turn that knife in my back more than one full circle. I resumed listening to the podcast for a few more minutes before deciding it's finally time for my coffee, almost 2 hours later than usual. Great, I thought. He's still out there, and I'm going to have to put up with his crap 2 more times on my way to Rosenberg's and back, because there's just no other route I can take to avoid him. But upon opening the gate and stepping out for the umpteenth time this morning, they had vanished. I looked up and down the street, across the street, around the corner as I made my way towards Noe. Neither Deke nor the pups were anywhere to be seen, not even from a further distance in any direction. And that is how my day started, Watson, in misery and meanness. Though applying my bodhisattva premise, I allowed all such dark impressions Deke had cast into this star-crossed pilgrim's world to roll off my back like a happy little duck splashing in a pond, for I refused to cave in to his horrid demands or allow them to ruin my day, and continue to have faith in all things, turning out spectacularly for my Cajun monkey on my back and those exquisite hounds. So I guess that was my latest challenge now overcome, at which moment Deke saw fit to vanish as his latest assignment was accomplished, though I'm sure my guardians that be grant me the luxury of calling him a stupid prick just to get this residual outrage off my chest.